that they've been thinking about over the past week or so. So I wasn't here last week. But I believe last week we just talked about our trip to Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So, no questions or anything? Oh, okay. Let me know if my video or anything changes. My internet is usually okay on Saturday morning, but so I would like to start off with something, and it's a verse, but I have it written down. I can't remember whether it's from the the Gospel of Thomas or any of the other ones that are normally available, but I'll probably look that up in a second. But it is, if two make peace with each other in this one house, they will say to the mountain, move away, and it will move away. So I'll repeat that. I'll just find out where it is. Oh yeah, so it is in the Gospel of Thomas, actually. If two make peace with each other in this one house, they will say to the mountain, move away, and it will move away. Make sense?
I saw her, but I didn't know how to answer.
Yes.
Okay. So that sort of leads me into the discussion I wanted to get into, which is one of what duality is and what that means, and what we're actually talking about when we talk about the purpose of overcoming or transcending duality. So here, Jesus is saying, when your experience or your consciousness of duality ceases to exist, then everything becomes open to you in terms of what you are able to accomplish in yourself and in the world, which is a reflection of yourself. So has everyone heard that term before? Duality, I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
The idea of duality comes into play into all spiritual traditions. Very much so, including Christianity as it existed before Catholicism. So duality is so important to understand anyway because it is the root of the illusion of separation that we experience in the physical dimension. And it plays such a big part in our experience because we are normally focused on what this physical environment or the information that this physical environment is given to us. And based on that information, things are separate. It's just obvious. But because this physical environment is an illusion, the fact that, well, the idea that things are separate is not one that is based in reality or based in knowledge and understanding of reality. It is based in the experience of an illusion. And the word illusion always, it doesn't mean that it's not real, quote unquote, because you're actually having the experience. It just means that what you are experiencing is not the ultimate nature or more ultimate experience of the particular thing. So when we say this physical experience, when we say that duality is an illusion, we can say that because it is not the ultimate truth concerning the nature of what this reality is, or the ultimate experience of it that you have access to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So,
Nick,
within, yeah,
the concept of duality was introduced in the beginning. When beginning created heaven and earth, the consciousness of enlightenment and the earth consciousness, the concept was introduced at that point, I think, and we had a choice as it developed, because we see Genesis written in sequence when all of it happened at once. And when it all happened at once, we instantly had the choice to remain whole with everything else, or to convince ourselves that it was something separate from us. And the separateness is what we accepted. Therefore, buying into the illusion of separateness or duality. Does that make sense?
yeah,
I mean, because I'm saying if we had not been presented with an opportunity to, then we could not possibly be created in the image of the one who had that possibility. So you can't be Elohim if you don't have the opportunity to create as Elohim creates, or bring things into fruition as you choose to, even though you may at a later date realize it was the wrong thing. The opportunity exists to bring wholeness into play once again, and get rid of the illusion of duality. And I think we need to emphasize that the illusion of reality is only an illusion because it is not truth. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It exists in our minds, but it's just not truth.
Can I ask, is that why,
so,
is that why we forget who we are at times, because we so caught up in this illusion?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So from the initial creation of duality in reality, that's where we get all of our distinctions between things that we experience. And the distinctions not only in terms of how we experience them or how we are able to view them physically, but distinctions in our ability to recognize them spiritually. So this is where, in the beginning, the distinction between male and female comes in, or masculine and feminine. The distinction between creator and creation comes in. The distinction that we make between earth and heaven.
Yeah. Before you get into that, in Genesis when we talked about what duality came in with heaven and earth, the next thing it says is that, and darkness covered the deep. So just after the introduction of it, confusion entered. by virtue of darkness, because darkness came before light. So duality itself brings about confusion, which in itself causes us, as Evelyn raised the question, not to remember or to know who we are. That's the confusion of things. Because we bounce back between being the human and being spiritual. You see what I'm talking about? Yeah. And what we have done post-Catholicism, and what we have done is created our own idea of what being spiritual is, as opposed to recognizing that we are not being spiritual. We are spiritual, period. We're not acting spiritual. We are. You see the difference?
Yeah.
So what we do, we talk about acting as a spiritual being rather than acting as a human. We actually act as human, but we act as spiritual. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you could say that this whole experience is something that we are involved with temporarily to figure something out. It's kind of like we're putting on a play. And in the play, you get to be all these different characters and learn what it's like to think like those characters think and understand what that means to be a little bit more of that character. And all of that has the effect of adding to your total experience. Does that make sense anyway?
Yeah.
So, when Jesus was saying, if the two make peace with each other in this one house, we'll deal with the first part of it anyway. He's referring to the duality of our experience within ourselves and how that is reflected outwards in the world that we experience. So, for example, we have said that we have both male and female qualities within us. But most of us resonate or are more closely connected to either one, depending on whether or not we're male or female. But regardless, we still have both. So when we learn how to unite those two, in other words, get them to work together harmoniously within us, then, for example, we will be making the two one in that situation or in that case. So there are many other aspects of ourselves that we can bring back to a state of unity. So remember Jesus stating that if your eye be single, your whole body will be full of light.
Yeah.
The single eye can only really open when a certain balance has been achieved within you. When a certain unity has reestablished itself within you. When all the seeming disconnected, jumbled thoughts or whatever become unified under one rulership.
One what, Nick?
Rulership.
I said rulership,
Okay.
but that might not be the best word, although it is you that are directing your thoughts. So, when they come together under the same, when they line up along the same intention, is a better way to put it, such that who you are on your innermost self translates outward to your outermost self without any resistance. So in other words, when we listen to the still small voice, when we allow it to order our thoughts and influence and direct our experience, that brings all those thoughts into balance with each other and puts them in the right place so that we don't create chaotic internal experiences. When that happens, then your perception begins to open up. Because instead of being pulled in all these different directions by all these thoughts that appear to be jumbled or chaotic, when balance begins to come into your experience, your perception opens up because it no longer has to deal with all these different things at once. And it can be focused, and it can have the space it needs to expand when all the rest of that stuff is, quote, cleared out. So your single eye can can become clear so that you can actually use it. When all these seemingly separate things that we experience come unified under the one intention, or become unified under the one essence of the source of who and what we are as it grows in our experience. Or rather, our awareness of it grows in our experience. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Or let me know what you think. Because I want to point out how things in our own experience are the result of us attempting to do this, to bring ourselves back into balance.
So then, that being the case, redemption is about becoming one with the source again. The whole idea of being redeemed, or what we call, what we have termed as, let me put it this way. Redemption is returning, being one with the source, right? And
Yeah.
the idea of being saved is the process through which we return.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Because in order to be returned, in order for us to return, and I don't mean return in terms of physical movement either, but return to an awareness of the unity that we are with the source, then there are things that we have to be delivered from. And those things from which we have to be delivered are the things that are distractions to us, that continuously try to convince us that we are something that we're not, human. And if we don't allow the third eye or the source of light to show us or to remind us that we are the masters of our emotions, we are the masters of this creation, this created consciousness of earth. If we don't do that, then it becomes more and more difficult for us to overcome this thing that we call reality. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the majority, the strongest tie that we have to this idea of being human, or the idea of separateness, is our emotions and what we see physically.
Yeah.
So when we are able to master the emotions and understand that the physical is just here as a aid to the physical body while we are on this journey of awareness.
And, somebody have a question?
Well, I was going to say the word remember has been strongly in my mind and in my heart remember, and it's been like this all this week. What does the, I'm not sure, but what is it that the word remember really means? And why is it that I'm experiencing it? I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I mentioned the word specifically, remember, not too long ago, but it means to reclaim the power that you are. And it means to reconnect with the ultimate nature of whom and what you are. And to allow that to bring the reality you experience into balance.
So remembering and breathe is basically the same thing. Because when we breathe, we reconnect. Am I right?
What do you mean?
When we breathing, when we really be conscious of our breathing, we reconnect.
Yes, that can help.
Well, I don't think it's much reconnecting as a reminder that we are connected.
Okay.
You see?
Yes.
Because we are breath.
Okay. Okay.
For a good example would be an Alzheimer's person, well, Alzheimer's in reverse, someone not recovering their identity, but just remembering who they are and things like that, where they once forgot. So it's just Alzheimer's in reverse.
Wow.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we are experiencing now is the state of forgetfulness. And the very purpose we are here is to remember who we are while here. And unite what appears to be, experientially, what appears to be separate or distant from its creator.
Hey y'all, this is Rainier. I have something, it's kind of about duality, but a little different, and I want to ask about it. I saw this TV show, and, well, I don't know if y'all remember Alien Nation a long time ago. It was that TV show where there were a group of aliens living on the Earth, and they needed 3 beings to reproduce, not just 2. They had a male and a female, but then they had this other being that helped them reproduce. And then I was like, I had no idea how that could be. And then I was watching television not too long ago, and they talked about kids who have these deficiencies in their DNA, and the way that they think they can get around that is by taking the embryo created by the mother and father and taking it out of the cell of the parent, of the mother, out of her egg, because the deficiencies in that mitochondrial DNA. And then they put it in a donor egg that doesn't have any DNA in it. That's a good egg, so that that embryo can grow in a good environment, without that defect. And as we talk about duality versus singularity, it's almost like this idea of, when I thought of that and what you're saying, dying to yourself, dying to that part of you that's deficient, and that donor egg now is almost the space of the creator versus our own corrupt space. Does that make any sense?
It does, in that it also, whether the embryo is healthy or not, it always takes 3 to produce, because the third party involved in that is breath. Because once the embryo comes, the baby is birthed, right? What's the thing that brings it alive? Breathe.
Taking breath.
Yeah. So it does. It still takes 3 to bring life. The mother, the father, and the breath. But then even at that, I think we talked about this once before, that we are reminded of the singularity during the state of pregnancy. Because the sperm enters the egg, right? And that's the oneness of the atom, isn't it? Male and female. So we are reminded of the singularity even at that point. So what happens is that, what I'm beginning to see, is that physical life, as we know it, cannot exist without spiritual life, whether we accept it or not. Because whether the newborn breathes or not, it does not stop breath from existing. Only thing that won't exist in this realm is that body of that newborn. You see what I'm talking about? So my question would be this: if a baby is stillborn, then did that baby have its own spirit, since it never breathed?
Say again?
If a baby is stillborn,
Mm-hmm.
did that baby ever have its own spirit, since it never breathed on its own? It would appear that they had a shared spirit, wouldn't it? It shared the spirit with the mother, because it was oxygenated through the blood, was it not?
Yeah.
So then, did that baby ever exist in the other realm? You see what I'm talking about?
Yes, they did.
You think they did?
No, yes, they did.
And I say I don't think they did.
Can I say why I said that?
Sure, of course.
Because we have a choice of whether we want to come in the world or not. And I just feel that the baby had its own spirit.
Okay. Okay, now, this is the reason I say not, okay?
Okay.
The reason I say not is that I'm beginning to question the whole idea of a spirit choosing to come into the world and enter a body.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the actual spirit does not enter that body until the first breath is taken, because we are breath.
Right.
And that baby does not breathe while it's in the womb in terms of the lungs functioning. The lungs do not begin to function until after the birth, am I right?
Yeah.
So if the lungs do not, the purpose of the lungs is to remind us that we are spirit.
Okay.
And if the lungs are not functioning, there's nothing to remind that baby of that body. Because in actuality, it's without the breath, it's just flesh. It's a substance. And that is the reason there's not a word in Hebrew or in the Aramaic for a living body. The word is actually substance. And the reason it's not a living body is because it's not breathing. If you're not breathing, you're not what?
Living.
Do you see what I'm talking about now?
Yeah.
So that's why I believe that when the baby exits the womb and takes the breath, that's when it takes in that spirit.
So, I have a question.
Oh, you got one of them for him. Oh, go ahead.
So what part does the heart play?
I'm questioning. The heartbeat, where does it come from? What causes the heartbeat? Energy, right? So, but if the mother does not give that baby the nutrients, right, the heart doesn't beat. So what I'm saying is that the host womb is what keeps that baby alive. You kept that baby alive. Tony didn't do it. The doctors didn't do it. You did it. Your body, right? Now, separate from your body, it does not exist, does it? And once it exits your body, how does it exist? By doing what? Breathing. Do you see my
Yeah, I
point?
understand
So
that.
what I'm trying to the point that I'm trying to get, the understanding I'm trying to get is, where does the life of that individual child takes place?
Right.
Because the whole time that that baby is in your womb, you are breathing for that child.
Right.
You are eating for that child. You are actually God to that child. Because without you, it cannot live. You see where I'm coming from? So I see the division between the womb that keeps it alive, and I don't mean division in the classical sense of total separation, because we're never separate. But I see, well, let me put it this way: I see it taking on a separate identity when it begins to breathe on its own. Prior to that is your identity. So it's a part of whom? You. We say that baby is a part of you. Watch what you eat.
Yeah.
Be careful what you say. Be careful what you think. Be careful what you read. So even be careful of what you watch in terms of TV and stuff. So everything affects that child. So I think it warrants some discussion to get to an understanding. And I'm not talking about this abortion rights where life begins. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about as above, so is below. So nothing can exist below without being connected to what's above. Everything is connected to what's above. And I don't mean in terms of geographics in the other realm, the other dimension. So Ricky, you understand what I'm trying to say? So does that, I guess it does make sense, but to bring some kind of clarity at that line, maybe it's just this: no one ever knows at what point a separate life starts. Because again, the heart is beating, but the lungs are not functioning. And the heart can't beat without being oxygenated. The blood flows because it's oxygenated, passing over the membrane of the other side. And running. Okay. Does that help? Vermeer had a question, but she's hiding in the home.
My legs hurt out, so I got stretched.
Okay.
My question was the same as Rita, but I still.
Can you hear her, Nick?
Yeah, I can hear it. It's soft, but I can hear it.
My question was the same as Rita's.
Okay.
But I'm not quite sure I'm there.
I'm not quite sure I understand it totally either. That's why I'm trying to discuss it, because that question.
I can,
go ahead.
I was going to add something to it. The body is something that we inhabit. So we give life to it, and it receives life from us. Now, when we are independent of it, it can actually still act like a body and do all the same things a body does, as long as we maintain a certain connection with it. Or we can, quote, sever that connection completely and enter the other realms fully. And this body appears to die because the life has left it. So, what am I saying? Just in order to help with the understanding of what was just talked about, when your body is being built, it's being built to the specifications that your spirit required. And then when it chooses, it enters the body and enlivens it. So at some point, there's a transfer from the mother to the individual that the baby becomes. If that makes sense. But exactly when that happens, we can't say. That's as difficult as saying when critical mass happens. You can't really pinpoint it, it just happens. when it's time to, or when you've made yourself ready for it. So, and just as an example, in Native American tradition, when they would do sweat lodge, or they would go on vision quests, or when they would sit and expand their awareness, they could leave the body and go do whatever they needed to do, but the body could still do whatever it wanted. They could walk around and talk to people and do all kinds of stuff. Because even though the focus of their awareness was somewhere else, there was enough of a connection so that the life was still present in the body. Now, if they had wanted, they could have severed that connection. And the body would just done. So we inhabit this body, and we have a responsibility to listen to the feedback it gives us, because that's related to our own development as spiritual beings. So, does that help at all? Or that's what I wanted to say. Anyway.
So did I miss the question? So you asked, does the spirit exist before it enters the body?
No, I know the spirit exists, but I'm talking about
Okay.
the individual baby.
Yeah, now I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you now. Thank you.
And I raised that question also because, you know, you remember we were talking about how people think that they're going to see their mama when they get to the other side, they're going to see their dad. That doesn't exist. That's not real. Because at what point does it stop? If you see your mama, now you see your grandmama, and then your great-grandmama, and your great-great-grandma, you don't even know them. Yeah, so it doesn't exist that way. So if it did exist that way, then what happens to the baby who never breathed? You see? So it doesn't exist that way. I truly believe that every birth, be it a live birth, as we call live, or be it a birth that does not have life, as we call life, I believe every one of them are designed for, not only as a reminder of who we are rather, but also as an opportunity for us to move towards beginning, you know, in terms of our awareness. When there is a marked decrease in birth, and I'm not talking about in America, I'm talking about in the world. When there was a marked decrease in birth with the human, that means that the human is getting closer to critical mass in terms of recognizing who it is and moving in the direction of enlightenment. Birth gives us time. Without birth, there is no time. There's only space. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So the decrease in birth rates is not necessarily a bad thing.
So Pastor Dan, what is or Nick, class, what is a familiar spirit then?
Something that you're familiar with.
Duh.
Actually, when we talk about familiar...
Where'd you hear that? Or where's that from?
Somewhere in the Bible, I don't want to say because I'm not sure, but I know it's in there. It says something about a familiar spirit.
Someone
okay.
vexed with a familiar spirit, my familiar spirit. I know what it is.
So duality is the perceived separation or distinction. Well, perceived separation. It's very tricky to try to think about it intellectually because you can interact with other spirits. In other words, you can be familiar with what the spirit of another individual that you once knew in life, in physical life, you can know in a different way in other realms other than physical. But that is not to say that those two things are separate. Which is why I said it's difficult to think about. So, in order to try to,
I think the difficulty in it also is in that we're sitting in this room, right? But we're really not. That's the illusion. You know, we were sitting in this room, but we're really not. That's the illusion. The bodies are sitting in this room. Got it?
Okay.
And we appear to be thinking as individuals, but we're really not. We're challenging each other. We're challenging thoughts. The earth consciousness that was created, that's what we're challenging in order to get a clarity so that the third eye will open. You remember last week when we talked about the 13th astrological sign? One of the purposes of it was to aid in opening the third eye, of bringing clarity to the third eye. So that, but it doesn't happen without a challenge, without resistance. We have to resist the temptation to remain as we are. In other words, we have to, when God told Abraham to leave his father's house and stuff, you know, leave his city, etc., what he was saying was, leave your comfort zone. Leave your comfort zone. But rather than leave our comfort zone, we either return where we stay where we're comfortable, or we try to run away from ourselves, as opposed to growing through it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when we are discomforted, the best thing to do in order for us to become more aware of who we are is to remain in that state of discomfort and grow through it, as opposed to attempting to run from it. Because until we grow through it and put it under submission, it's going to always return. You see what I'm talking about? Yes. It's going to always return. It may be 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, but it's coming back. So you got to grow through it. And my suggestion to you, as I make every attempt to do, when I face it and it's uncomfortable, I do everything I can to stay in that spot until I get beyond it, so that I don't have to deal with it again. Does that make sense? You understand that?
Yes.
And that's not the easiest thing to do. It's not easy at all to stay in the place where you're uncomfortable until you become comfortable in it.
Steve, what's an example of that?
Nobody can hear you but me.
I'm sorry.
I got one.
What's an example of that?
Okay, then.
I have a job interview next week. I hate job interviews. But I had a job interview 2 weeks ago, and I recognized that all the same nervousness and anxiety came up, but I was able to release enough of it so that it went really well. And I intend to take that same attitude to the next one coming up this week.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter whether you're in whatever particular situation. You're in it, and you have no choice but to be in it. So you might as well get to know it and get to know yourself so that you can make that situation unfold how you desire it to unfold, as opposed to being tossed around by it.
So then my question would be this. What if we were talking as an example abuse? Is it so that you recognize the abuse? If you're like in an abusive situation?
See, that's a whole different ballgame.
Okay, all right.
I'm not talking about discomfort that's brought to you by somebody whooping your butt
Okay.
or emotionally abusing you. I'm not talking about that.
That's what I want.
I'm not talking about staying in that kind of, that's not discomfort, that's abuse.
Yes.
And under no circumstances should you remain in that kind of situation, whether it be emotional abuse. See, the reason a lot of people stay in the abusive situation is because they're afraid of what other people gonna say. Who gives a rat behind about what other people gonna say? Because they ain't in the abuse you are. You see, so quite frankly, if I were being abused by females, and I don't care what people would think, I'm gone. I'm just, it doesn't mean I hate them. It doesn't mean I don't like them. But what it does mean, I like me.
And you tired of her beating on you and stuff.
That's not talking about. So what you trying to tell me I need to go right now?
Yes.
But you do understand, the difference?
Yes, I did. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, now the discomfort that I'm talking about, like Nick talking about the interview.
Right.
Okay, you also have the discomfort of being agitated by things that you cannot change. And the things that you cannot change are the things that come to you from other people. You see, you can't change them, but you can change your attitude.
Like the micromanaging that's on these jobs now.
You can't change it.
Yeah.
So this is the job. The only reason that we get all bent out of shape for the job is because the job is who we are. But if you just see that job as a check and that's all, if what that job does is sustain your physical being, that's all it's for. But when you start identifying with that job, that becomes a problem. And that's why people, when they lose a job, they shoot everybody, then they'll shoot themselves or jump out of, because they identify, they're so interwoven with it until they can't give it up. Does that make sense? But you can't do that. It's a check, that's all.
So that's pretty much, basically, when you go into any job, you need to just look at it as
A check. Yeah.
If you
it's
don't like
hard though.
Yeah, of course it is. All this is hard. Because we've been conditioned, we're going to do the opposite.
But wouldn't it kind of be based on what job
No.
or what you?
I guess it would, though. Well, no, I don't think it's what job. And the reason I say that is because I don't have a job.
Because I can't go into mine thinking about it's just a check.
No.
I went into mine thinking that it
No,
was just a check.
that's not what I'm talking about. We talk about a relationship to those people who micromanage you, that gives you a headache. The only thing that they do is make sure you get a check. The kids that you deal with every day is different. That's totally different than your job. Because whether or not you were getting paid, if those kids came across your pathway, you would treat them the same way.
Right.
The person, the supervisor, the manager, what Evelyn was talking about, that's the one who provides the check. So when stuff comes down the pipe, you roll with it, as opposed to trying to fight it.
So we just talking basically the stressful part of it,
Yes.
and you allow it to consume you.
That-
But don't we need to find out, as a manager, why it's so much stress? Why are we allowing it to be stressful?
I ain't talking about the manager. I'm talking about the one who the stress is on.
Person that's stressed.
Anybody is stressed because they choose to be stressed.
That's what I'm asking.
Anybody who's stressed has chosen to be stressed.
So we need to search within ourselves why we're choosing to be stressed.
No, we
No.
already know.
We
When
don't-
you find out the source of the stress, now you know why you're stressed. Do something about it. How do you do something about it? Change your attitude.
Okay.
Change your attitude. If you got financial stress, change your attitude. Because guess what? You can't change it nowhere. If you could, you would.
And adding on to that, changing your attitude while you're in that situation is how you unite the things that appear to be separate within that situation, or that situation makes you aware of. You unite the higher self with the lower self. Or in other words, you stop being ruled by your lower self and allow your higher self to bring into order everything that the lower self does not understand how to.
And that's redemption.
So, whenever you're in a situation like that, remember that you came into this life specifically to be in that situation.
That's something to
So
remember too.
reclaim the power that you are.
Yes.
Yes, it's by choice.
Let the other creation that you are.
See, everything is by choice. Look at the, it's hard to look at creation because we look at things in sequence. And things don't happen, they did not happen in sequence. And we intellectualize it to the point where we keep it like, for example, one day has nothing to do with 24 hours. One day is talking about the unicity or the wholeness of enlightenment. But when you say first day, it implies a second day. So first has nothing to do with the idea of one day, the first day. It is talking about a period through which certain things took place. And if you look at the scriptures very carefully, you will begin to see that are you familiar with the Big Bang Theory? Okay. You will begin to see that beginning burst forth with what? Heaven, earth, Elohim, God, right? And when you go from that, it says, and darkness covered, confusion covered the deep. Now, when you go from that, you start identifying different aspects of personality and attitude. That's what all these things are doing. Why do you think that you are influenced by the stars? Because they are a reflection of attitude. Now, it doesn't mean it's set in stone. You have a choice to move, to grow beyond that. But if you don't, that's what's going to control your life. So all these things that we look at in the scripture are an understanding of how we got to where we are. Which means that if you know how you got to where you are, we begin to learn how to get to where we need to be. And that is to a state of awareness beyond anything that we have ever experienced in this body.
All those things are a reflection of us, right?
Yes.
So we should control it, like you just said, and not let it control us. Am I right?
Well, yeah, and let's use the word master it.
Okay, master.
Because control carries so many negative connotations.
Okay, so master.
Because when you master yourself, you're mastering it.
Gotcha.
So it's that when you bring balance to yourself and learn how to master yourself through the process of bringing balance to yourself, the unity of awareness that you realize you are has the ability to affect whatever change it desires. Now, the truth about what you actually desire is that it is the same as what the Creator desires, ultimately. So when we say control or manipulate or change situations, it's not out of egotistical desire. It's out of how can we bring about a certain situation that will further the goal, the ultimate goal of what this physical experience is for everyone. Does that make sense anyway?
Yeah.
What you just described is will. When you desire what the Creator desires, because will talks about creating an opening through which the source of everything that is can bring enlightenment to us and mankind at large. So that's the desire, isn't it? In everything we do, it's about what we call life. So as above, so as below. Above is about life, right? Mm-hmm. Life and living. Below is about what? Life and living. Why you work. Get a check. For what? So you can eat. So you can take care of you see, while you go to the doctor. Life. Everything geared towards living. But the life that is geared toward in this world is what we have created in order to perpetuate the illusion that we are something other than what we were created to be. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep. How are we doing?
I'm thinking about ego. Would ego be an energy that manipulates your emotions and your thoughts?
I can see that. It's like the interface between the physical and the mental or the spiritual. And so emotions being more physically oriented than spiritually oriented. I can see ego being the thing that directs them, or the space within which emotions and emotional responses take place.
So then ego would be a tool that has the potential to do what all other tools do, and that is to guide us back to beginning or an awareness about who we are, if it's used in the right way.
Yep.
Because when it's not used in the right way, we have a tendency of having scattered thoughts.
Well, actually, when it's not used in the right way, we have a tendency to manipulate other people.
Yeah.
Your ego tells you that you know more than everyone else, if that's on the intellectual part of it, or your ego tells you you're the greatest missionary in the world, because you're helping people. If you give something and you feel good about yourself for doing it, you did not give it for the right reason. You gave it for you.
Mm. Wow.
You gave it for you. But if you give it because it's the right thing to do and it doesn't matter, you just did it and it doesn't matter, you have no feelings about it, and 6 hours from now you can't even remember how much you gave or who you gave it to because it doesn't matter, then you did it for the right reason. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, or if you're just as happy if someone else did it, rather you did it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just happy that that need or whatever needed to transpire actually took place the same, equally.
And that's spiritual gratification. But it also helps to keep the ego under submission.
What does?
What Sheldon said and what I said. Do one thing without.
It's kind of like when people say, and I believe they say the same thing, but it could be coming from two different places. I'm just glad I could help. If they're just saying, I'm just glad I was in a situation for this need to be met, no matter who met the need, that this particular need was met, then that's what we were just talking about, where you just want it done, you're not doing it for self-gratification. But if you say, I'm just glad I could help, like, yes, I'm glad I can make your day. And I guess notice the emphasis that I'm saying, and I notice that I could make your day.
Yes.
Or make the other person's day. So I guess in the sense of big I, little I, is definitely apparent. It's definitely a difference in the two different ways.
So is that ego being guided in the right way? Is that what you're saying, Sheldon?
I mean,
You use it to that.
that ego is seeking self-gratification. So all the things that we think about that pleasure us, that ego is seeking self-pleasure, or to be pleasured, so to speak. It's just seeking it and enjoying it in a different form.
Okay, but you said that when it's not, it doesn't matter, and I guess you're using the little I that I was there or played a part. So that's ego being guided in the right direction.
No,
Or can it be?
if the little I is, I'm glad that I was there, that's the wrong direction. That's the wrong direction. Go ahead, Shelley.
But say for, we're just going to give an arbitrary example. You stay close by. So say like it's someone at foundation or whatever, and let's say the person's car broke down and they need some help. Now, if you're just happy that any of us in the room came by to help them and they got help, if you're just as happy as if you came yourself and helped that person, then that's what we're talking about. It does not matter to you. Now, if you're only happy because you did it, and because that makes you feel good, then that's your ego being in charge, and that's you only doing it for self-gratification because it makes you feel good. If someone else had come and did it, you don't care, it's not a big deal because I didn't do it. It's kind of like the same thing when certain people like giving people money or doing them favors, just so they can tell everyone else that they did it, which is why I'm not sure in exact terms he said it, but Jesus basically said something about basically when you do something in the dark, then you will be blessed in the dark. Basically what he's trying to say is he's not necessarily talking to that physical act just being in the dark, but what he's talking about is your heart and your giving, or you're doing whatever it is you do, your interactions with others, doing it purely out of your heart. That's what he's, the deeper message that he's talking about.
Yes, the motive.
And I can add just to close a gap that I see.
Please.
When you do that, and when you do what Sheldon is talking about, and you are pleasured by the spiritual rather than by the selfish or the physical, then your ego is responding to the influence of your spirit and is being pleasured by the spirit rather than your lower nature. And it's a different feeling, or it's a different way.
And I just thought about something too. I've never really considered it. I knew it, but in the sense that you would think about that scripture or those types of teachings and how it was taught to us in a traditional setting, it was like your blessing is going to come to you in darkness. Like this is how you get your super blessing. And then of course, I was always thinking before that it was something physical. But you know what the best blessing you can get in terms of what the Bible is actually talking about? Is actually to, Evan, what you were talking about earlier today, is to remember. That's the best blessing you can have or get. That's the ultimate blessing. Because with that, everything else comes, and anything material or we may have thought automatically is minor in comparison.
Okay.
And if the little I is in control, then there's always agitation. There's always something going on that's out of sorts. I read this thing, and I think I may have mentioned it last week, I'm not sure, where it says that peace is the vessel for blessing, not blessing, but blessing. And the body is the vessel for peace. So if you're at peace with yourself, you are a blessing. And what I get from that is you can never be at peace with yourself as long as you're at war with your enemy. Which means that you are not a blessing because you're not at peace with yourself.
everyone thinks of a blessing as, not everyone, but most people, especially in our society, think of a blessing as receiving something material. But the
Yes.
whole point in trying to receive something material is to reach this like certain point in their life where they're happy. So it makes absolutely no sense that someone would actually choose, and there are a lot of people who would choose, like if you had to choose happiness or a whole bunch of material things, I'm going to choose the material things. The whole reason why you want to choose the material things is because they make you happy, so that is crazy.
Well, it is, especially when you talk about the teachings of the book. Because the teaching of the book said, when it talks about blessing, it's talking about spiritual. So if you were, when you're a spiritual blessing, that is simply saying, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and righteousness, all these other things will be added. Take no thought for tomorrow has enough trouble of its own. That kind of thing, you know. That's exactly what it's saying. Be the spiritual blessing and worry not about the other stuff.
And I'm gonna give one more example to show you how ludicrous it is. Okay, I'm just gonna say, let's say that the material world is the equivalent of being a slave and working on a plantation. And so, well, what the people were actually seeking is they are seeking to have the best job on that plantation. When really the true blessing of getting to know yourself is to be free where you're not even a slave. But the only thing people are concerned with is something that's in a material slave realm. And I guess it is appropriate because you are a slave through a reality that is not its ultimate reality. So I guess you are a slave.
To your own lower self.
Yeah.
So we think about, we usually think about all this physical stuff, and we're like, when do we get all our physical problems solved? And we don't realize that there's no such thing as the physical. Like when we say you'd be blessed spiritually, oh, but you're still going to have a terrible physical life. Understand that this stuff is made out of thought. There is nothing else other than the spiritual.
But you know, Nick, you cannot truly be, you cannot be blessed, be a spiritual blessing, and live a physical eternal life. Those two things do not go hand in hand. They do not go hand in hand. If you feel like you're living a physical, terrible life, it's by your choice. But when you recognize who you are and that you are a spiritual blessing, then you put those things in perspective and you grow from them as opposed to you allowing them to minimize your growth of awareness, of course. What is it? I see the wheels turning in that big old head.
I was just thinking how when we start living that, thinking that,
Yeah,
everything else changes.
it does. It puts everything in perspective. It really does.
Yeah.
One of the things I was thinking about, just in my figuring out what I want to do, job-wise, is one of the things I realized, and I'm sure this is the kind of stuff they would teach you at like business seminars or something, because it's all an extension of the same thing. But money is not like, money isn't really earned. Money is created by you, along with everything else. The question is, do you know how to? And it's not that I'm saying that the goal should be money by any means. I'm saying that the goal should be an awareness of whom we are, to such an extent that we understand that if we want something done physically, all we have to do is create it. We get in those uncomfortable situations that would force us to be stronger, more aware people, and back out of them. And because we back out of them, we don't become as strong as we need to be in order to be able to create whatever it is that we need. Because those situations are there for that exact purpose. And then we complain about why things don't change. Well, and because we didn't change it. Because I didn't change it.
Ouch, ouch, ouch.
Leave some room for me, Ella.
Our whole attitude has to change. Because we've been living with an attitude that is not who and what we are.
But that's with everything.
Everything.
And, you know, I don't know which is worse. To allow what you perceive to be the absence of things to change your attitude and make you feel bad about yourself. Or to allow what people think about you or say to you make you feel bad about yourself. I don't know which one is worse. But either way, you're being controlled by things and others, as opposed to being who you are and recognize those things and thoughts for what they really are. Opportunities for you to do an introspection and move beyond where you are. Listen to what Evelyn just said, ouch, 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 right? What does that mean? That means that she recognized that something touched her, right? Every one of us is in that same predicament. What does that mean? That means that we recognize there is something in us that we need to deal with. You see, that's the only reason we can say ouch to certain things. Her ouch may be different than yours, but it's there. And it's in your face constantly for you to deal with it. Make the decision to deal with it, and if you say, I don't know how to deal with it, the strongest thing you have is your desire. The sages say, when you have a genuine desire for righteousness, you become righteous, and your journey to purity begins. But you have to have a genuine desire for it. And your desire for it cannot be so you can end the pain that you're going through. Your desire for it has to be so you can be a perpetuator of the principles of the Creator by virtue of how you live your life.
Can I say something?
No.
I heard that all the way from New York.
I'm in Virginia. Go ahead.
Well, okay. They were saying on the news, a lot of women are overdosing on pain
Prescription
pills.
drugs, yeah.
And my question is, why is that happening to the women?
I'm gonna let Nick Pastor say that, but I do want to say something that might go along with that. Now, when Pastor just now was talking about that ouch that you were just talking about, how I look at the ouch, or how I just saw the ouch just now, was your body trying to grow or go in the direction of remembrance. So automatically, when you take pain pills, or how some people would abuse drugs and they take them for different reasons, not all, but how some, it is to suppress things. So I don't know, is that overdosing on particular pain pills an attempt to avoid, not acknowledge, ignore your body or the big I trying to come through, trying to silence the subtle voice, because that subtle voice of trying to push you is becoming uncomfortable.
Well, I agree with that, Sheldon. But also, I think it's the feminine energy, not knowing how to deal with the pain that it feels. You know, and the same, it carries the same principle or energy as does a belief that things will make you happy. The pill minimizes the pain that you recognize is there, and that's what makes you happy, that you don't have to face it. But it's not real happiness at all. It's a Band-Aid on the gunshot wound.
Yes, and that's very important because I know being happy is a big thing as of late in mainstream media, but it's two different routes to that. One of them is just trying to suppress everything and ignore it as if it doesn't exist, and the other is actually dealing with your problems or what seems to be a problem and overcoming it and actually growing. And so that's when you have these people who, quote unquote, they go postal when they've pretty much just been sweeping something under the rug or just packing everything in a closet, and then all of a sudden the closet bursts because nothing else can fit in it. So yes, definitely. Please continue, sir.
So what's going on? You know you weren't getting away with that.
I'll wait on that, Bess.
Yeah, I know. Everybody was waiting on that.
So anyway, I think that these things are coming to light because of the light. You you cannot have light without showing up what's in darkness.
That's right.
You cannot you can't bring order unless you recognize what's out of order. So, how long has the feminine been suppressed?
Yeah.
You know, quite some time.
Yes.
So, I truly believe that there are a lot of pains that have been brought from not only just other generations, but other lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And the only ones who don't recognize the whole concept of other lives are really post-Catholic Christians. You know, but the scriptures are full of it, and all of the shamans write about it and talk about it. So maybe, just maybe, it is an attempt to anesthetize the pain that's been brought. That we should be healing. And when I say healing, I'm not talking about healing like we talk about healing. I'm talking about healing in terms of bringing it to a place of oneness, of wholeness, so that the pain does not exist, not only in this generation, but in generations to come. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So that when I talk about healing, that's what I'm talking about. Most of us want to be healed, not because we want to be an asset to mankind or because we're in search of who we are. We want to be healed so we can stop hurting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So the whole idea of the pain period, and I heard the same report, that the prescription drugs killed more people than heroin and cocaine combined. And the overwhelming majority of the people who they're killing are female. But it also is marketing. You know, everything is marketed. Most stuff is marketed towards females because females are the purchasers of most stuff in this country. I mean, most men don't really care about buying a lot of stuff. We don't. So, if we can deal with, not if, when we deal with the pain in this room, we'll deal with the pain in this world. Because the world is this room, and this room is the world. You see? And I say that based upon what happened when Yeshua walked, when Jesus was in the earth, in the physical form. He and those disciples who walked with him, look at what the changes that they wrought. So you know, we feel like it's another generation, but I don't. I feel like it is up to us to make sure that the same, at least, at the very least, the degree of change that took place with Yeshua is the degree of change that takes place with us, because of us being here. At least that amount. So don't push it to another generation by virtue of going through something and feeling sorry for yourself rather than correcting it. Does that make sense? And no, and as Rika said earlier, that is not easy. None of it is easy. This is hard stuff to do. But guess what? It's only hard until you start doing it. Then it becomes easier as you do it. And if you've ever learned a sport, it was hard when you started. But once you get into it, it gets easier. So that's just what this is. It gets easier.
Can I say one more thing and I'm finished, I
You
promise.
ain't never finished.
I promise. But until we inside this room start loving ourselves, I honestly believe this, the problem will still go on. I'm learning. I'm not there yet. But until we in this room start loving who we really are, start loving ourselves, then things would change.
And when we talk about this room, we're talking about the voices that come from the phone, the voices that come from Skype. We talk about everyone who is connected, whose energies are connected. Because regardless of whether Sheldon be in Virginia or New York or in this room, you're still in this room.
Yes.
You know, so when we talk about this room, that's what we're making reference to. And Evelyn is absolutely right. And that's getting on the same page. Because once we begin to love ourselves, that's reflected in how we treat ourselves. If I continually allow my discomfort to control my life, I don't love myself. I don't love myself. If I continue to sweep it under the rug, I don't love myself. I express love for myself when I begin to deal with it. Look at your body. If you cut your body, the first thing you do is take care of it, don't you? If you got pain in your body, the first thing you do is take care of it, don't you?
Yes.
So why don't we do that with who we are, the spiritual? You see? So the reason we do that with our body is because we love our body. But so when you love yourself, you begin to deal with those issues that you face as opposed to sweeping them under the rug or putting it on somebody, blaming somebody else for it. All right? Are we contemplating?
And the issue of loving yourself is probably the biggest problem that feminine energy faces.
And that goes back to abuse. I cannot say this enough, and I don't believe any of us can say this enough. Do not allow yourself to be abused. When you love yourself, you don't accept abuse. Whether it be emotional, physical, or otherwise. You just don't do that. At some point when you love yourself, what do? You move beyond it, don't you?
Yeah.
And you do what it takes to move beyond that. See, divorce and separation are words that can save your life. Sometimes you have to divorce or separate, whether it be husband, wife, parent, parental, connect, whatever it is. If it's damage, if it's abuse, you need to do something about it. Yeah. Other than complain, and other than blame someone else for your misery. Now that's hard, isn't it? That's hard. Because it requires you not be concerned with what people who are close to you think. You know, we got everyone in the room, and again, the room is extended, has someone in their life or family who they're not too pleased with. You know, what doing the stuff that they do or things that they act out. And we are uncomfortable with them, not around the family, because the family know. Usually we are uncomfortable with them if somebody else, you know, comes around, a friend or a colleague at work. If they are in the present, you be like, oh my God, I sure hope that they don't, you know. You know what I'm talking about? When we get to the place where that doesn't bother us, because people are going to be who they are, then we can begin to deal with situations, or make it easier rather, to deal with situations that affect us in an abusive way that we're afraid that others go find out about. You know, there is someone I know who got in over their heads, and I'm talking about in a huge way, and squandered almost $500,000, and began to lose everything that they had, and they were staying where they were, knowing that foreclosure was in process, because they were afraid of what other people go think. Well, if they go see your stuff in the street, you know, and to this moment is in denial because they don't want other people to know. And I believe that the reason they're in the predicament that they're in is because they didn't want other people to know. The things made them who they are. So in abuse is the same way, isn't it?
Yes.
So, anyway. So where are you, Nicholas? Okay. That's it. That's it. Oh no.
I'll just end by saying that we originally started talking about duality. Love is the thing that brings all things that appear to be in opposition back together. And we are in opposition, or rather our idea of ourselves that we want to maintain is in opposition with what we really are. So when we love ourselves enough to be honest with ourselves and to pay respect to the reality of what our self is, then we can bring all those opposites together. And with that, I think I'm good.
Okay. Are we done? We done? Okay.
Finished? Yep.
Father, we thank you for this day and the light that you brought. And we pray that the light that we have seen, that our desires will increase to be that light. Amen.
Amen.